This is Mrs. Maxine Bruhns, who is our host today, and she's going to introduce a lot of information for us and some inside info on both the rooms, but also, most especially, her role in developing rooms and so on.
My grandmother was Martha Jane Poe, and she was related to Edgar Allan Poe. And she is the ghost in the early American room who comes out every Halloween and makes the cradle rock. And my other grandmother was Anna Jarvis, was the daughter, and she founded Mother's Day in Grafton, West Virginia, where I was born. So I'm 100% West Virginia, born and bred, and however, I didn't stay there very long after I met my husband, or he wasn't my husband when I met him, but I went to Ohio State, and he came back he was a German refugee, and had joined the American Army and went to Italy and served in military intelligence. And we met just before he was to graduate and I was. And he said, if you marry me, you'll have to travel. And I said, you know, who, me? Because he decided, as being a refugee and having a good experience with that, he was going to become a refugee specialist. So indeed he did. And we spent 1 year, we got married in 1946, spent 1 year in New York, and we were off to Austria to resettle. This was 1947, and to resettle the refugees from World War II. And so we lived in Linz, Austria for 2 years, and then, and that was a long story, many adventures and so forth. Then we were coming back. We traveled all through Europe in our little car, and then we were to come back to the States, and he was going to do his master's degree at Stanford. So there was that time, and then when that was done, he took me to a poster in Stanford. He said, that's our future. It was the Ford Foundation saying, Middle East researchers wanted. And so he wrote a 2-year proposal to go to the Middle East and study Palestinian refugee attitudes. So we were off to Beirut. We lived in Beirut, but we also lived in Jordan and Jerusalem, and had a lot of, I learned Arabic, and we had a lot of friends who became still our friends. I got a call the other day from my Arabic teacher's widow in Beirut, and she said, there are now more Syrian refugees in Lebanon than there are Lebanese. There are 1.5 million refugees. So this whole area is just becoming not like it used to be. After Beirut, we were picked up to go to Vietnam because there were 800,000 North Vietnamese refugees in 1955 coming south because of the communism in Ho Chi Minh. So we were off to Vietnam, living up in the mountains the first year in Dalat, and there were snakes and wonderful things that we met. In the second year, we went down to Saigon, and I taught Vietnamese army officers English. And like about 6 weeks into the program, I got a lesson that said the 105 millimeter cannon has a range of 1.5 miles. And I thought, why are we studying these things? I had no idea there was going to be this long and desperate war in Vietnam after we left. From Vietnam, we moved to Cambodia, right next door, and there I taught some Buddhist monks English, and they, I by chance got that class because normally they are not allowed to let the shadow of a woman fall upon them, And there I was replacing their teacher he had developed kidney stones and went off to Bangkok. But there were 3 students, and one of them was named Usimon, and they could answer, my name is your name, my name is Maxine, what's your name, and this is a watch. And then the second class I had, there were 15 students, because they were not allowed to touch a woman or even speak to one. They came because I was a woman and I had to find more books for them. I ended up with a class of about 65, but Usimon had really latched onto me. He began calling me mother, and then he learned where I lived. And so he came during siesta and rang the bell, and my husband went to the door, and Usimon, in his orange robe and shaven head, said, "Is my mother here?" And my husband said, "Well, she's sleeping right now. Maybe you wait until she comes to the temple."